Hi, and welcome to the Red Tunic Podcast, a podcast where I look to rediscover what makes gaming fun and enjoyable by having positive conversations with those related to the industry. My name is Link, and today I'm joined by Sam Prebble, developer at Trigger Happy Interactive, maker of Turbo Overkill. Hi, Sam. How are you doing today?
Doing good, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing all right. Sam, I do want to say thank you so much for making time to have this conversation with me and join me this morning. Morning for you. It's the afternoon for me, but for you, it's 8 a.m. ish. So I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to steal your early morning.
It's all good. Happy to be here.
So Sam, before we get started, if you don't mind, could you, tell me and anyone listening a little bit about yourself so we just have a baseline of who you are?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm Sam Prebble. I live in New Zealand. A very, very long way from where you are. But I've been playing video games for about as long as I can remember. I think one of the first games I played was Monster Bash, back when Apogee were making those DOS games a long time ago. I then went from that, started playing a lot of Doom, and I never really stopped playing Doom. I've been playing, I still play it today. I've done a few other things, like other hobbies, like I did a lot of filmmaking in my teens. From there, I went into working at various visual effects houses. I worked on a bit of TV for a while. I kind of jumped around between those until I guess I got sick of it and kind of wanted to do something different. So, I've been dabbling with, the Unity engine for a good 10 years now. I've been making games long before that. And I figured, hey, why not try and turn this hobby into a career? And then I started working on what my dream game is, which is Turbo Overkill. I started working on that about 4 years ago, and it's been a hell of a journey.
So thank you for sharing that. And I really like, the foundation kind of that you came from, only because, well, I shouldn't say only because, but because, I imagine that gives a interesting perspective or a unique perspective on how you want to frame certain elements of your game out. Is that a stretch to think?
No, I mean, I definitely, a lot of my inspirations are obviously Turbo Overkill. It's pulls a lot from Doom, which is what got me into gaming in the first place.
So, Sam, I do want to ask this as well, and I apologize if this is something you've been asked a lot and it's kind of overkill. Pun
No
unintended there. But, to start, you have a chainsaw leg. And now for episode 2, for for what's coming next or what have you, a chainsaw bike. I'm trying to, I think just to jump into it, why the obsession with chainsaws?
I mean, why not, right? I mean, everybody needs a chainsaw leg. The chainsaw leg thing, it was purely accidental. When I was prototyping this game, because when I started Turbo, I just wanted to make a first-person shooter. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I started the project. I thought it was probably going to fizzle out and be another one of those early prototypes that just get shelved and never looked at again. But I was playing a lot of Apex Legends at the time. This was when it just came out. It was when they shadow dropped it, and my friends and I were playing it, and I just couldn't stop sliding around all over the place. I was playing as Pathfinder, which is the robot guy. The combination of grapple hook and sliding was just a very addictive gameplay loop for me, and I just kept doing it. And I was like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I'll take this mechanic and stick it in this first-person shooter that I'm prototyping. But then I told myself, well, okay, but what if when you slide into enemies, it just kills them? And I prototyped that out. It was fun to play, and then I figured, well, I kind of need a reason for why this is happening. So screw it, just stick a chainsaw on the leg and see how that feels. And it's pretty funny because from that one mechanic alone, like the entire universe of Turbo Overkill, the whole cyberpunk augmentation side of the game, that all stemmed from just this accidental mechanic that got thrown into this prototype. Because when I started prototyping the game, I had no idea what it was going to be. I just knew it was going to be a first-person shooter that was about as it's about as shallow as it was back when I started it. But the game definitely evolved from just that one mechanic. And then going forward for episode 2, I was like, well, I don't know, a chainsaw motorbike, that would be kind of funny. So just stick chainsaws on it and just to add more of that. To try and make it feel more like something in the Turbo Overkill universe. And for episode 3, we have I put a short clip out back in December. So you have a chainsaw leg, and now you have like chainsaw attachments for your arms. So it's kind of just there for. I kind of like that whole cheesy B movie kind of tone, and I felt a universe like Turbo Overkill where it's just over the top violence, I felt a chainsaw leg would be a perfect addition for that universe purely by accident.
So I love that, just because you often hear, and I've spoken to other developers as well, where like the accidental thing is becoming like a really fun element, or like in this case a pillar of the actual game itself. Like I just absolutely love it, just because it's hilarious that you just wanted to give justification to why a slide kick was killing or doing so much damage. So the justification was to slap a chainsaw down for the leg instead.
I will say most of the stuff in Turbo Overkill has just been a lot of accidents that have somehow managed to work. Like there is a lot of stuff I've put into the game that I've thrown out because it just didn't feel right. Like when I went into Turbo, I didn't really have a plan for what I was doing. I kind of just I just did what I felt would be fun.
And ultimately I think that's what is the most important thing, right? Because you're making a game for just as much you as anyone else, or I should say you're making a game more for you than anyone else. Like if other people like what you're doing and want to ensure that you can keep doing it and make sure you're fed while you're doing it, that's just a bonus, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So Sam, to kind of shift it slightly away, or to the side, maybe, I don't know. When it how, because you mentioned you started when you were younger, you were doing like film stuff, playing around with film stuff or what have you, and that Turbo Overkill wasn't really your first game. It was like one of those prototype things that you were playing around with. How did you get into developing and making games? Like what led you to this moment, kind of thing?
Yeah, so I suppose I was quite young when I was playing a lot of Doom back in the day, and I figured out a couple of years after I started, I was like, oh, actually, there's this program out there that lets you make your own levels, and it just blew my mind. It's like, wow, like this game I'm obsessed with, I can now jump in and start, I can expand on it. I can make my own levels, my own arenas, and from that, just making levels from Doom 2, it kind of started this obsession where I just wanted to make interactive experiences. I've been modding Doom for quite a long time. I've been right up until probably about 4 years ago, I was making mods constantly. I was making custom maps. I was making multiplayer prototypes. I think the biggest project I did is a horror mod called Total Chaos. It started out just as a very simple. Okay, I want to take something like Doom, which it's not really a scary game when you look at it, when you play it, right? Like it's very colorful. There is a atmosphere to it, but it's not a very you look at it now, it's not as scary as it was, like when it came out. So I decided, okay, I'll just try and make something really freaky, and it kind of expanded from there, and I kept just redoing the project over and over and over again, making new prototypes. I was playing around with GZ Doom a lot, which is it's a source port, so it's basically based off the source code that got released, and they've added all of these new techniques like modern lighting, high resolution textures, 3D models, and from that, by constantly working on this mod, I self-taught myself, okay, the basic aspects of 3D modeling. I taught myself how to texture and how to work with code, and it wasn't a quick process. The mod took me a good 15 years to make, and it was mostly because I was just starting the project over and over and over again, because I was young, I was learning, I had a lot of free time. It's not like I had to work a job to pay the bills, right? So I had the luxury of time to just sit here and tinker with this source port. And then eventually, somehow, I have no idea how it happened, but eventually I ended up managing to put something together. And what blows my mind even more is when I released it, I thought, okay, this is going to suck. Nobody's going to like it. It's basically just a tech demo for, what GZ Doom can do back in the day, about 4 or 5 years ago. But when I released it, people quite liked it. Like, it took a while for it to pick up, but I just got such a kick out of watching Let's Plays of it, and, watching people play through it, and, they walk through this level, and I know, okay, coming up there's this, spooky encounter, and when seeing their reaction from that was just, I got a big kick out of that. Because back in the day when I started this project, I was like, there's no way I can make this a scary experience. There's just no way. But seeing people play it and get frightened by stuff, it's just fun to watch.
And that's great to hear. Like the how you came, like how you started the process of why you learned, because you were learning on the job, so to say. And I just think that's great. And like I imagine that feels really nice to release something and have people like enjoy it, have people playing it, have it like having it existing out there. And I'm really struggling for the right words, but to like see it be successful. There we go. I imagine it feels really nice to see something that you've put so much time into, even if that time was like restarting and learning and what have you, to have like success and like see people enjoying it, right?
Yeah, it's I'm very humbled to know that people are getting something out of it, because I have worked on stuff in the past, like so Total Chaos. I mean, people call it a game. I still think of it as a Doom mod. The first real game I made was like a mobile twin stick shooter that I worked on for a good 4 or 5 years. And when I released it, this was also me using what I learned off Total Chaos while I was working on it to make something different. And when I released it, nobody played it, and it was just such a, I kind of knew that was going to happen. I kind of knew, okay, nobody's probably going to play it. That's fine. I learned what I learned from that project. But the feelings I had from releasing that game, those continued on through Total Chaos. I was like, nobody's probably going to play this, and seeing people play it was a really nice surprise.
Yeah, I can only imagine the preparing for the worst kind of thing and having such like a nice outcome, right? I think everyone can relate to that, where like they expect nothing to really happen and to have that nice pleasant surprise, which if your expectations were already tempered going in, any amount of pleasant surprise is going to be fantastic, I would assume, or presume, even, because I've been there. I think a lot of people have been there.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, even after you release it, though, like, something I did not expect was it may not be immediate what the reaction is to your game. Like you might like this happened with Among Us, right? Like they released the game and it was out for a good year, and nobody cared about it. Nobody played it until like the pandemic happened, and suddenly the thing just blew up and became as popular as it is. But like I've put games out before, looked at reception for a week or two, and then seeing nobody play it, I just take it down. Like I'd say, yeah, I mean, leave it up, see what happens. Like Total Chaos didn't pick up until years later after it was released. But yeah, I'd say seeing the reaction from stuff getting released is always, for the most part, been unexpected. Like I'd expect this to happen, and then something that I did not think would happen would.
So, based on your experiences and whether this answer also includes, the potential of tempering your expectations or what have you, but based on your experiences, do you have any words of wisdom that you are able to share?
Yeah, so I mean, there's the obvious ones, like start small, right? Like you don't want to. When I was starting out making games, I would always say, okay, I want to make this big, epic, ambitious project, which is gonna kick a lot of ass, right? And I'd sit down and try and make it, and I wouldn't get anything out of it, and I'd basically just be bashing my head against the wall, and nothing would come of it. But by starting out small, you can kind of if you start out small, you can you get that sense of satisfaction for releasing something, right? And for me personally, I found that was quite a big driver for me to keep working on projects. Like if I was stuck in a silo just working on something for 10 years, it burns you out quite a bit, and then you don't enjoy what you're doing. But and another aspect of that is I'd say this advice doesn't sound nice, but a good time. It's always good to know when to quit something. So, for me with my mobile project, if I told myself this before, like, okay, I'm bashing my head against the wall making this game, I don't think it's going to be successful, I probably should have stopped working on that game and moved on to something else. I usually find with Turbo Overkill, for example, that game gained a bit of traction quite early. So it's good to know, like, if you don't think something's working, then just move on to the next thing. And also, a good word of advice is like, do what you love doing. Don't follow trends. Like I see people sometimes, it's like Among Us is popular now. Let's make a game like Among Us. Like, don't do that. Like, just make what you want to make, because the passion you have for that game, like, it will flow into what you're doing. But if you're making something to stand, then you may not have the passion for it.
So I think that is really important advice. Like I think that's just in general, but especially now, like knowing when to call it quits, and in conjunction with do what you're gonna like, enjoy what you're doing or what have you. Like I think those two things are really great, like intermeshed, because there might come a time where the project you're working on isn't really doing anything, or it's not going anywhere, and you're still enjoying it, but you should still like know when something has effectively run its course, when it's time to say goodbye, right? And at this on that same in like the same hand, I guess you would say, or what have you, knowing that you should enjoy what you're working on, even if like even if you think it's going to be a huge success, if you're not enjoying it, what's the point? Like what good is your mental health being in the dumpster just because you have a good feeling that something's going to be successful if it's not fun to you, right?
Yeah, and I can imagine there would be a bit of resistance, like, to keep working on something because you put so much time into it. Like, if you cancel a project, you still learn a lot from that. You still learn everything you've learned about, especially when starting out. There's new skills you have gained from working on this project that you're going to abandon that will be very beneficial starting on the next one. Like, it's not wasted time. I mean, there was a bit. I mean, it does feel like it at the time that this is a waste of time. But if you're starting out, you're learning. It's just a process.
Yeah, and I think that's more or less that's like the sunk cost or the lost cost fallacy or what have you, where like you have the mindset you put so much time or money or what have you into something that like walking away from it would be a waste. But like you said, you've in all things when you put time into it, you're likely learning, you're likely improving on different things. So like walking away from it or restarting it, like you with the mod for Total Chaos, like you said, you restarted it, but I'm going to presume that every time you restarted it, you were taking what you learned before because you were unhappy with where it was or where the direction it was going, and you liked the idea of it and wanted to like do a better version of it, right? And being able to do that and understand the experience you have up till that point is incredibly valid and incredibly valuable, because all that's going to do is make what you try and do next as a baseline easier, because you like the learning to drive basically, like I'll use that one because a lot of people I'm sure have been through this. Like the first time you touch that car, it's horrible. You're all over the road or whatever, but like if the car breaks down, you get a new car, whatever, like you still know how to drive. That experience, that everything you had up to that point is still there. That's probably a very poor analogy.
That's actually a really good way. That's actually a really good way of looking at it, though. I never thought about it like that before.
Well, thank you. I'm happy that my bad analogy meant something to you.
Not bad, man. It's not bad.
so Sam, from there, because I imagine this is going to be like a somewhat easy answer, because I think you might have already like covered it. But what game? Sorry, but what game made you want to like make games? And I'm going to assume it's Doom, or a variation of Doom 2 or what have you, just because of what you said your experience was making mods or making maps and packs, and given the name you released Total Chaos under as Wadaholic, I'm presuming, or assuming I should say, it's probably going to be Doom, but I still would like to ask, just in case it's not, the game that made you go, I'm going to make games.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to land on Doom, unfortunately. I keep thinking about it. I keep thinking back on it. It's probably because it was one of the first games I played that it got my hooks into me so much, as much as it did. I don't know. I keep landing on Doom. I can't think of anything else. I mean, I was quite stuck in the first-person shooters for a very long time. I never really branched out and played a lot of other video games. I guess games like Dark Souls, that was the only time I really thought about branching out and trying something different. Yeah. No, yeah. So I keep landing on Doom. I can't think of anything else.
And like I said, I was assuming it was gonna be there in that direction at the very least. So two follow-ups for that one. And I apologize if you answered this in other words and it just didn't click in my head. But what was it about Doom that made you want to do that?
It was something about the simplicity of it. It just felt very. You could sit down and play the game for a couple of minutes and you already have a grasp of what it's about, right? Like there are games that I play now which I not only because like I have to work a lot on the side, but sometimes I sit down and play other video games for research, but I find I don't have a lot of patience for sitting down, having to learn, go through an hour's worth of tutorials and an hour's worth of backstory. I just want to get into the game and just have fun with the mechanics. I don't want any of its extra stuff. And that was something about Doom was like if I want to just sit down and play for 20 minutes, I can jump in and get a lot of time, get a lot of value for that time I put into it. I mean, I guess that was with a lot of games back then, right? Like a lot of games were very simple, compared to what they are now, what they are like now, where there's a lot of extra stuff on top of it. But yeah, it was mostly the mechanics, just the simplicity of it. And now, going from Doom, like games like Quake as well. Like I've been playing a lot of the Quake remaster lately, because I get that same kick out of it that I got out of Doom back in the day. Like if I have a spare 20 minutes, I just sit down and load up like the Quake injector and just download a random mod and sit down and play that for 20 minutes, and I get a lot of fun out of it.
So I don't, I'm just gonna say it this way. I understand what you're saying. I completely agree. Like one of my biggest pet peeves, especially with demos, is when like you just want to sit down and play, and then it's like, okay, but have you considered the fact there's going to be 30 minutes of you're gonna feel like we're gonna tell you stuff, and it's like I just want to make stuff explode. I just want to like get in there and try it. So I completely understand, because you just want to, like, if you're exhausted or you're like, I don't have much time, you just want to hit something that's gonna go right. So like I completely get, I imagine a lot of people completely get that too. Now the other thing I wanted to follow up for with that one was, and this is just because I don't think to ask it enough, and I should, because it's probably really close to home for a lot of people. But when it came to, playing Doom or playing other first-person shooters when you were younger, whose fault was that? In my case, I'll preface with this so it sets up the question or the understanding a little better. In my case, it was my father's fault for that Pentium, that Pentium 120 Christmas morning being turned on, and the first thing he did was pulling out the 4 or 5 Doom floppies, clapping them in, installing Doom, telling me how to run it through DOS, and then washing his hands of anything else. Like, it's his fault that I was playing Doom, and it's his fault that the metric for are they humans or are they zombies? Well, then the violence is fine, kind of thing. In that kind of context, if my weird, disjointed story makes any sense, whose fault or who can you blame for your playing first person shooters? Like who dropped the parental ball on what they should or should not have been letting you do?
Well, I actually think it might fall on my older brother, because I know he's quite. Yeah, I kind of follow. Now that I think, I haven't actually thought about this much, but I think I followed his lead quite a bit on the whole tech front, because he was into computers. He's into computers a lot. Like, we used to work in similar fields. Nowhere near now, but yeah, I remember. Like we had an old Windows 95 computer back in the day. My mum used it for work as she would, and then we would jump on it and just completely consume, like completely use it all the time, way more than we should have. Yeah, I think it was my brother. I'll blame my brother on this one.
And I think that's completely fair. Like, I was a single child, so the only person that can fall for the fault in parental responsibilities is my father. My mother absolutely did not like the amount of violent games I was playing, but for whatever reason, she didn't bother to try and stop me. But like, I knew a bunch of other kids around my age, and their older brother was like the same. Like, my first introduction to Duke Nukem was a friend's older brother showing it to the both of us, or some variation of that. So, I imagine that's also really the case, because I assume a lot of parents said, "Oh, they're with the older brother and they're not fighting. Who cares? It's fine," right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure my mum didn't want me playing it, but back when I was 5 years old, I would always, you kick up a fuss as you do, right? And saying, well, okay, it's easy, just sit down, play the game, I guess. I think the only game she had a problem with me playing when I was young was Grand Theft Auto for obvious reasons. But Doom was fine though.
So, for someone that has the original, who played a lot of the first Grand Theft Auto, and a lot of Doom and like Quake and the holy and unholy trilogies or what have you for the build engines and such, I find it shocking that Grand Theft Auto was a watermark in that, because it was top down, and like the worst I think you saw was someone getting splattered when you run over them. Maybe I don't remember if you could launch people into like this camera screen. I don't remember if you could do that. But I'm sorry, that one just stands out as an oddity.
Yeah. Well, the one for me was I didn't play the first two. It was the third one for me that kind of got me in trouble. But I can sort of see why, because back then it's very it's simulated reality, right? Like you're walking around the streets, you're driving cars, and then all of a sudden you start carjacking someone and then running over pedestrians on the road, then I say, okay, this, back then I could have seen why that might have been an issue, but yeah,
yeah, I that thank you. That puts it far more into context. And that reminds me of something. And my father likes to listen to these podcasts, and I don't know if he's going to remember this, but he's going to after. And I'm going to presume you did not have the same experience as I did with Grand Theft Auto 3. But someone in the family raised concern over the fact that you could pick up hookers in Grand Theft Auto 3. And immediately I was like, I want to say I was like 13, 14 at the time. I don't remember at this moment. Either way, though, without skipping a beat, my father looked at me and said, "What do we do with the hookers after you pay them?" And I'm not going to say what it was, but I am going to say what it wasn't. And the answer was not drive away respectfully. I'm going to presume you did not have a similar interaction with any of your parents regarding that, but that was mine.
They didn't see the hooker part, but yeah. And then there was a lot of games I was playing when I was younger when I probably shouldn't have been. I played Postal. I was very sure to make sure no parents were around while I was playing that game, because it's a pretty messed up game, especially as a kid playing it, right? Yeah. I mean, to me, I think after a while, my parents just saw most games it's just fantasy violence. Like they obviously see I never got into fights when I was a kid. I was never a violent person, so I'd say, well, he's not a violent person. How could this be an issue, right?
Now, for all we know, Sam, if someone put a zombie in front of you, then you could be a violent person, because that is, in fact, what Doom has been training us all for our entire lives, right?
If someone put a zombie in front of me, I'd probably freak out and just run away.
That's probably a far smarter and more accurate thing than my bad joke. So thank you. That's probably better. Just run away. So, because you mentioned, Grand Theft Auto, you mentioned Doom, you mentioned Quake, you mentioned, a lot of, or a handful of first-person shooters. So I don't know, I'm presuming this is going to land in the same realm of this. And also, as the trend has been going, it could also just very much be Doom again. But do you have a favorite game that you hold and it makes you you just a favorite game in general? And what is it about that game that makes it your favorite?
definitely the Stalker series. I mean, if I were to have a runner-up for favorite game next to Doom, it will definitely be Stalker. That really expanded my mind to say, okay, you could take a first-person shooter and there's other stuff you could do with it, right? So, it's like you can... I remember back in the day, people were calling it, was it Oblivion with guns or something? Or was that what they were calling Fallout? I can't remember. But when I sat down and played it, it's just such an immersive game. Even back when it first came out, like you sit down and play it and you're transported into another world. That was, yeah, I mean, it's definitely with stuff like Total Chaos. I took a lot of inspiration from saying, okay, I'm making this Doom mod, but I love what they're doing with Stalker. So, stuff like the inventory management and the atmosphere, I wanted to replicate that in my mod as well. Definitely the Stalker series. More recently, I have been playing a lot of the this wave of boomer shooters that have been coming out. I've been playing a lot of Proteus, Hobart, stuff like that. A lot of Dusk. But yeah, Doom and Stalker, they're if I had to pick top two, it's those two.
So, I completely understand with Stalker because, I think a lot of people that play Stalker, even the I don't know how into like the immersive sim it actually steps, and all of that fun stuff. But that one for me was like something that made me realize I enjoyed the the myriad of elements surrounding it, like the inventory management, the health pack if you were low on health, or the bandages if you were bleeding, like just all of that stuff. That was kind of like the steady tug for me into finally understanding better for immersive sims and such. And also, I don't know about you, but for me, when Stalker was like being made, because for anyone that doesn't know, it went through a very severe development hell. I would probably say, like uneducatedly maybe, that it was like the same kind of nonsensical development hell that Duke Nukem Forever went through, where it was like every time a new shiny thing came out, they kind of like restarted. And if anyone wants to know, they can look way more into it because it's a far more convoluted and what have you story than what I've just said. But like, I get what you're saying for Stalkers, what I'm trying to get to. And like, the first time I played it, even on a machine where it, was stuttering, where it was tearing, where it was not running smooth at all, like it was a magical game. Like it was absolutely wild, how like atmospheric it felt. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just sort of adding on because I love to praise Stalker is basically all that's happening here. Is I'm just trying to praise Stalker because you brought it up.
It's funny. I actually don't know much about it. I never actually looked into the way it was made, so I might do that after this interview.
It's kind of like a wild ride. Because it originally started on like DirectX 5, and then like it didn't come out to like DirectX 9, so there was a lot of time that they were working on it. Like at some point the guys that made Metro, they split off and basically recreated the engine, but like not like a more focused version. And it's a wild it's probably more simplistic than I'm actually making it, but in my memory it's wild just because of all the moving parts that went into how it got to be exactly what it was and everything. But yeah, it's worth a read if you are interested in that kind of stuff, in my opinion at least.
Yeah, I'll definitely take a look.
So on the topic of Stalker, just for another minute or two maybe, if you'll permit it, when it comes to, because for those that are aware that there's the main games, there's the Shadow of Chernobyl, I'm probably going to screw this up, Shadow of Chernobyl, Clear Skies, and Call of Pripyat, I think is the three proper. And then there's the myriad of mods and the total conversions, or the like beta. There's a bunch of different what have yous. So my question, I guess, that I'm trying to get to is, do you have like a favorite idea of Stalker? Like, a mod that, the mod that you would prefer to play. Like if you're going to play Stalker, here we go. If you're going to load up Stalker and play it, what version or what have you are you loading up to enjoy it the most for you?
So I played the base game when it came out, the first one, um, but I didn't really play it again until a good, let's say, 10 years later, or 10 years later. Came out 2007, right?
Something like that, I think. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. No, it's more like 5 years later. So okay, five. So I didn't play it again until 5 years later, and I did everything that people said you should. Is I started playing a mod first before. I was playing Call of Pripyat, which was one of the expansions they did, which I never played before. I did buy it on discount, but I never actually sat down and played it. And I downloaded a mod called Misery, which is a good title for it because sometimes playing that mod is just it's quite a miserable experience because it's a really hard mod. But I got very immersed in that, so much to the point where every time I play Stalker, I kind of look for that dark, gritty, hard experience, and I kind of got that out of this recent wave of Stalker Anomaly and Stalker Gamma. But yeah, it's definitely play the base game first before playing any mods. Now you got stuff like Stalker Anomaly. It's that's just a whole nother game on its own. Like I can't. It's like I play it and the areas are the same, and there's NPCs that you know of from previous games, but just playing it as a whole new experience. So definitely, play the base game and then play Anomaly or Gamma. I'd say it's the way to go with that. It's pretty addictive.
Yeah, exactly. And for anyone that has not played Stalker, and is listening to this, especially if they're listening because it's, they want to hear you, Sam, talk, and everything about your likes and such, I would be shocked if they're not aware of it. However, avoid Monolith. Just walk away. Just walk away, any new players. Just avoid Monolith. And if you're wondering if you've encountered Monolith, the rocket launcher, the rockets flying at you will give you a good heads up when you're getting near them. That'll be your cue just to turn and walk away, especially in the base game, because that was my first interaction with them, was being told to go into their area and going, oh, I wonder if I'm close, and then it just being rockets flying around. And that was the moment I went, oh, I'm a little too close.
Get the exoskeleton first and then go there.
You probably, yes. You want to anything that'll help you not be dropped from a rocket just from it being near you.
Yeah, that game can be very punishing sometimes, but it's very punishing.
And on the topic of it being punishing, though, like it's a fun kind of punishing, and I know that's a weird thing to say, all things considered, but the one time I was playing, I was hiding from someone, and I was on the wrong. Well, I was hiding from a group on one side, and there was another group, or guys from the other, and the angle they were lighting up the side of like a tin transport can, or not transport a tin, but like the transport vehicle cargo things. It basically had all of a buckshot, shrapnel, or ricochet off of that all into my skull, and it was hilariously fun, just because as much as you want to be mad and miserable because you just died after a tight interaction you thought you would win, some of the ways you go down are just absolutely fantastic and hilarious, and they're just fun. So it's a weird game where even when it's miserable, you're gonna have a tense and fun experience. Maybe not in that exact moment, but when you're out of it.
I mean, It's definitely like I can totally understand what YouTubers mean when they talk about stalker stories and experiences you have in the game. Like y- this, yeah, you kind of make your own fun, and you have like that's the way it's built. The game's built is I've never played another game before where I've been so much in control of like everything that's gone wrong. And the game is like, oh well, I decided to go out and find this artifact. I didn't bring any bandages or med packs. I'm bleeding to death, and I'm slowly crawling back to base. And it's like this is entirely my own fault.
Uh, yeah, I think the best way to put it is it's like, like you said, it's there really isn't anything like it. Like you can say that there's simulation games or mil sim games that are close, but like it's just that perfect amount of arcade with simulation and jank because it's it's slab jank. It's a perfect storm of everything, in my opinion.
Mm. Yeah, I just wish I had more time to play it.
Yes, I think yeah, I can relate. I think everyone can relate to that, uh making time for things you enjoy versus like the want versus the need, and you have to eat, you have to clean up, you can't just let the garbage pile, like yeah, I think everyone can relate to that one. And hopefully in the future you're able to find more time to actually do those kind of things.
Mm, absolutely.
So, Sam, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. However, I do want to make sure I get, like, I do like to ask this question, so I want to get it in here. But outside of games, what is it that you enjoy doing? Like outside of making games, outside of playing games, outside of games as general, or, this could also just be games, but like outside of it all, what do you enjoy doing? How do you relax?
Um, it's been so long since I've been able to just get away from the computer and do something different. Um, I love staying in the creative space. I just like making stuff. I would. I used to do. Unfortunately, this involves a computer again, but I used to do a lot of 3D animation. So about 5 years ago, I worked on a couple of 3D short films. Did a few film festivals, which was quite an experience. The only reason I stopped doing that was because it's really hard to make money off short films. I spent about 5 years making one, and it's yeah, it's just doesn't. It's very hard to get anywhere with it, in my experience. But I'd love to just be able to, write a script, find some time, make a short film, um, get back into that. I used to do a lot of. This was a very random hobby that I never expected to pick up, but I started doing a couple of years ago wood carving, which I could never see myself doing, but it's quite fun just being able to take a slab of wood and make something out of it. Um, yeah, yeah, I need to get off the computer more.
um I'm look, I'm far be it for me to make that claim. I'm always at a computer, so I'm not going to be the one to say yes, you need to get off the computer more. That would be incredibly hypocritical of me. Um, but if you enjoy what you're doing, I think it's okay. But like I understand what you're also saying about the amount of time to like make a short film of sorts, especially if it's like uh because I'm 35, and I came up in the era when Newgrounds was like I don't know how much of a hotbed Newgrounds is now, so what I'm about to say could be just very wrong, but I came up in the era where Newgrounds was huge, a huge hotbed of like people putting stuff out, making short flash films, or short films, or what have you, and just like going wild, and that was a wild time. And then like YouTube came along, and for a while it was you could do that, and now do the algorithm, um, the just like the nature of how it like pushes content out, like how it pays out, and like just all of that. um I completely understand like how demotivating it could be, and I don't mean from like just a monetary sense, but like I can understand how demotivating it would be to put like a lot of time into something, and you have to fight to just try and get like it to be seen, get it to be out there, because as I'm presuming you're going to be similar in terms of like the creative space and this mindset, but like as much as you do stuff for yourself, um, you also want to share it. You want to be able to show people what you've done. You want to like be proud of what you've done and have people see it and also enjoy it, and this, that, and the other. And like for something that is a borderline hellscape just to get people to also see and enjoy, I imagine that's like just a huge like demotivator when you spend like 4 5 years working on it and nothing, right?
Mm. I mean, I feel it's fine the first couple of times around, but when you get to like our age, you kind of have to make a living. You have to make money. I have worked a lot of jobs on the side that I did not enjoy that much, and I being able to work for myself now, I don't want to go back to working on someone else's. I've worked with some amazing people, but at the end of the day, you're kind of working on someone else's creative vision, and that is really, for me personally, that's very demoralizing. Like I want to put my time into something I have made, but yeah, with the short film thing, it's like, yeah, you make one short film, you learn how to do it, but then you start on your second one, you put it out, it doesn't make a lot of money, and then it's like, well, I don't want to go back to working for the man again. I kind of just want to do my own thing, so I had to move away from that, unfortunately. But I'd love to try and get back into that someday. I just have to think of what it is exactly I want to do with that.
And yeah, like I understand that completely. That makes perfect sense. And it's I spoke with someone else, and I think the way that it was put then with them was like, when it's your money, when it's your vision, when it's effectively when it's you on the line, even if it's like they're your stresses because it's affecting your bottom line, but at the end of the day, like you said, it's your vision, it's your bottom line, right? And
Hmm.
even if it's stressful doing stuff for yourself, it's still for you, it's still what you want. And I think that's ultimately that's what's going to be key when you, especially if you're doing things on the side for yourself, when you're trying to like make money with it, that at the end of the day you can at least stand there and say, this is mine, right? This it wasn't it wasn't your boss's thing that you were working away at for 3 years for them. Even if they pay you for it, like at the end of the day, you being able to say this is all mine
Hmm.
is a pretty big thing, even when you consider all the stresses that go along with it. And I don't know if I'm misunderstanding or maybe misrepresenting what you could also be getting at. So I do apologize if I'm going down like going up the wrong tree in that scenario and like just completely uh, blowing away what you were actually trying to say or what have you. I'm sorry about that if that's the
I know
case.
you're good. You're good. It's definitely working on Turbo Overkill has probably been one of the most rewarding things I have worked on. Um, and that's mostly just coming from seeing people play it, seeing people enjoy it, interacting with the community, which sadly I don't really get to do so much these days because I'm busy finishing the last episode. But as soon as that's done, I just can't wait to get back into interacting with people, and yeah, just knowing that people are enjoying something I put out is a very rewarding experience, and it hasn't been something I it's not something I've had really at this to this extent with previous projects. So it's been great.
And on in that like on that note, I'm like I'm very happy to hear that for you because like well, simply put, it's rewarding, and so I'm happy to hear that you are feeling rewarded. And I also, I apologize. I don't know if I mentioned this, and sometimes I forget, and I just forget to say these kind of things when I'm talking to people, to guests and such. But Turbo Kill, it is in my backlog. It is there. From what I've played of it, I absolutely had a blast with it as well. I do want to make sure I say that to you, because like it's a blast. Like it is a insane boomer shooter, right? Like you have a chainsaw for a leg. Like it's hard to give it justice beyond just saying you have a chainsaw for a leg. Like
That should sum it all up, I think.
yeah, exactly, right? Like so I did just want to make sure I say that from what I played of it, it is absolutely fantastic. For anyone that's hasn't played it, is on the fence. Um there's a demo, it's absolutely fantastic. You can pick it up in early access and play the few episodes, and then get to the one when you release it. But like for anyone that's on the fence, like there's a demo, you get a chainsaw for a leg, there's a shotgun that feels nice. Like it's a fantastic boomer shooter. It's crazy and it's fantastic. Sorry, I wanted to say
It's all good.
I need to make notes to say these things sooner. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I said that, and at least not to try and dismiss or downplay what you had just said moments ago. It just reminded me that I had not actually sung the praises of how much fun I had from what I have played of this game. So yeah, for anyone listening, it's fantastic. You should add it. You should play it. Add it to your backlog. Play the demo. You'll have a blast. Um.
Thanks.
So
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, definitely give the demo a go. I mean, if you play the demo and you like it, then the full game's basically more of that. So
You get a chainsaw for a leg, people. I don't. That should, like you said, that's pretty much everything that needs to be summed up. I will also say this though. One of the things I liked the most is the cyberpunk aesthetic. Like I, I really enjoy the cyberpunk aesthetic for just in general. And more cyberpunk stuff in my mind is great. Just it's right up my alley. So if you like cyberpunk as well, like the aesthetic of cyberpunk, the genre, there's lots of bright, flashy neon lights in this game that you will also have the pleasure of experiencing with your chainsaw leg. Uh, but Sam, as I said, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. It's early in the morning for you. You graced me with, speaking with me so early, and I want to let you get on with your day. So that way, you don't have to make up time that I've stolen from you. Um, However, if there was anything else you did want to discuss, like another cool game, something else you're working on, or anything else about episode 3 if you'd like, or what have you, or something you just feel more people should be aware of, by all means, the floor is yours. And please let everyone know where they can find more information about you, which I'll also include in the episode description.
yeah, so I'm usually active on Twitter and Discord mostly. But if you go to turbooverkill.com, it'll take you to the Steam page, and there should be links there for. We got the Discord up there. I think we got Twitter up there. If not, turbo_overkill on Twitter. That's the tag. Yeah, in episode 3, we currently will be releasing. Yeah, so we're releasing the first half of episode 3 next month, and then we hit 1.0 in July, and that'll be that's the finish line. There are a few post-release things we want to do, but there's stuff we're going to be announcing at a future date. Yeah, yeah, that's it.
And fair enough. And like I said, I will make sure that, in the description link so people can get, figure out where to follow you, learn more, what have you, that, the Steam page, the Discord, Twitter are there. So yeah, that way people can learn more and try, like, learn more, look into everything, and hopefully pick the game up and, you know, get to enjoy a chainsaw for a leg. I know I've said that a lot. However, you get a chainsaw for a leg. I don't know what else. I don't know how else to sell the game beyond you get a chainsaw for a leg, and it's fantastic, but you get a chainsaw for a leg.
And a chainsaw bike.
And a chainsaw bike in episode 2, right? Exactly. And more chainsaw stuff in episode 3, I believe you said earlier, correct?
That is, yeah, chainsaw arms and no, that's it. No more chainsaws after
that. Until you decide otherwise, right?
It was always funny doing memes. It's like, so I put the chainsaw bike picture up one day on Twitter, and they were like, "Oh, not enough chainsaws." So I was like, "Okay, well, here's a picture of the chainsaw bike with chainsaws on the chainsaws." Yeah, it's always fun doing stuff like that.
I remember seeing that and laughing, and finding that, rather amusing, just because it's the well, pun intended here, but it's the absolute turbo overkill of it, like. One more question. I do want to slip this one out before I let you go. I promise it's a quick one. I don't know if you're too familiar with the Japanese graphic novel, manga, anime, what have you, Chainsaw Man. However, if you are familiar with it, who do you think does chainsaws better? Do you think you're serving chainsaws better, or do you think they are?
I mean, how do you beat a guy that has chainsaw arms and a chainsaw head? I think they have this one. I'm afraid.
So what I'm hearing is you need to add chainsaw heads. That's at that point then you'll be on equal standing, right?
I'm terrible. I actually don't watch a lot of anime, but does he have chainsaw legs as well, or is it just the arms and the head?
At one point, unfortunately, he has chainsaw legs as well. Unfortunately, in your case right now.
Yeah, so I don't think I could ever top that. Unfortunately,
he doesn't have a chainsaw bike though. So I think
he has a pet with a chainsaw in his head, right?
Sorry, what?
I don't know. Like, I keep seeing this little cute little thing with a chainsaw for wedged between his eyes.
So not to get too much into it, because if you don't watch a lot of anime, it'll just be nonsense that I'll be saying. But
I mean, having a chainsaw head's pretty nonsensical. So
so the very quick, too long, didn't read. Chainsaw Man, Denji was a boy. He worked with a chainsaw demon, which is that little dog named Pochita. And that's the little pet with the chainsaw nose. In like the first chapter or two, basically the beginning of it, Denji has a very bad accident with a bunch of zombies, and Pochita, effectively the chainsaw demon, effectively becomes his heart. So that little pet, then you see it for all of 1-2 chapters, immediately just becomes his heart, and that's how Denji becomes a hybrid demon person thing. And that's where the chainsaws come from. It's because Pochita is the chainsaw demon, the little chainsaw dog, is effectively giving him this power. So in a sense, yes, he has a little chainsaw pet. Unfortunately, though, to much of the chagrin to a lot of people, my significant other especially, you do not get to see the little cute chainsaw doggy really again. It's locked away in his chest.
I had a feeling that Pochita will be a bigger part, but that's sad to hear. Well, I think I have to do some research and watch this show.
I'll say this. I know I said it would be really quick, and I'll keep this quick as well. It is absolute nonsense if you read the graphic novel. What's been animated is nonsense as well. However, the graphic novel also gets completely nonsensical because the main character is an idiot, and you get to see him doing stupid things with other people that are not everyone's idiots, but there's a few other people that he is doing stuff with that are absolute idiots as well. And if you enjoy idiots doing the dumbest thing imaginable while still very much abusing the rule of cool, you will probably enjoy a large portion of the dumb stuff that happens in it. I can say with confidence. That is usually the pitch I make to people as well if they're on the fence, is enjoy the idiocy of what Denji and the other idiots may or may not do, because it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
But Sam, as I said, I mean it this time, I do want to let you go. So if there wasn't anything else, I will let you get on with your morning.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Well, Sam, I'm glad you had fun. I appreciate you being here. The pleasure was all mine getting to speak with you, getting to talk about how Turbo Overkill came to be, and the kind of things you enjoy, and like the inspirations or what have you that have led you to this point. So thank you very much for your time. I very much appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So thanks again to Sam for making time to have this conversation with me, and thank you for joining us on the Red Tunic podcast, as well as a special thanks to Ronald Jenkins for the use of music from the title track from Roads Deep. And if you like this podcast and want to support it and help it grow, please subscribe or follow me on Twitter at Red Tunic Podcast to receive the latest episodes and news, and be sure to share with those you think might also enjoy it. Thanks, till next time.